Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1259B, and today's date is April 20th, 2017, and the title of the episode is U.S. Sniffer plane scans North Korea. Be prepared for the next event. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, Trump is still pushing the repeal of Obamacare. He has not given up as of yet. The chair of the House Freedom Caucus, Mark Meadows, and Tuesday's group co-chairman Tom MacArthur, well, they've reached a tentative Trump care deal. But the two Republican lawmakers say they are nearing a deal on changes to the Obamacare replacement bill. Now, again, we're going to have to see what this bill is, exactly what they're talking about, because, again, it has to benefit the people. And if it does not benefit the people, then Trump needs to really take a good hard look at what the Republicans, what these individuals are pushing out there, because he needs to understand and get the message. We don't want something that benefits the health insurance companies. We don't want anything that benefits government. We want something that benefits the people. And if Congress and the people in the government cannot take on this health care insurance themselves, and they don't replace their health insurance with this health insurance, then the people, guess what? We don't want it. So we'll have to see how this whole thing turns out. My hopes are not very high right here. We see right now that Congress is coming back, and they'll be debating the spending bill. And we can see that the discussion is going to happen on or prior to April 28th, and it might trigger a government shutdown, because we know eventually the debt ceiling is going to hit. It's very, very close. The government is going to run out of money, and there's going to be big problems, and we're going to have to see what the government officials do at this point. Now, do I think they're going to keep the debt ceiling the way it is? Well, no, I think they're going to raise it just like they always do, but we'll have to wait and see, and we'll go from there. We see once again, WikiLeaks, Trump, they were right. Because WikiLeaks, when they were pushing out all that information about Clinton and everything else, the FBI, the CIA, Obama, they were all out there saying that WikiLeaks was getting the information by state actors like Russia. And they laid the blame for every embarrassing leak at Moscow's footsteps. Well, the FBI and CIA admitted that they are searching for an insider now, not a Russian. It was a contractor who was leaking the information. And actually, WikiLeaks said this all along. They said it was an insider contractor who was feeding them the information. So once again, WikiLeaks, Trump, they were right, telling the truth. The FBI, CIA, they were feeding us fake information. Very interesting once again. Now, it looks like there is propaganda out there. And why I say this is propaganda, because to me it makes no sense whatsoever of why Trump would be doing this. Now, they're saying that Ivanka and Jared Kushner, now I know Jared Kushner, his sordid past with his father who had a hedge fund, real estate investments. He was put into prison. They're very wealthy. I understand that. People are saying that there's ties to Soros. And they're saying that these two, his daughter and Jared, convinced Obama to renege on yet another campaign pledge against the advice of Steve Bannon. Now, this is where it gets kind of strange, because according to Bloomberg, a pro-Paris bloc in his administration, which targets greenhouse emissions, is recruiting energy companies to lobby the president to remain in the controversial agreement that he specifically said was a waste of money during the campaign, and actually said he is not going to keep it. Now, we will have to see what he does, but to me, at this point, it looks like propaganda. Now, there's another piece of propaganda out there, once again, that says that, well, maybe he's looking at reinstating the TTIP, and it might be good to keep global order. Now, remember, he signed an executive order that pretty much stopped TTIP. People around the world didn't want TTIP, and we see that Paul Ryan is out there pushing this idea. Now, if these two come true, and he goes back on both of these, at this point, we can see that the deep state, they have full control over him. So they are out there. They're saying, listen, we know that he signed the executive order on January 23rd. And the executive order was withdrawing the United States from the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And we can see right now that Paul Ryan, Speaker Ryan, is out there. And this is according to, again, Bloomberg News, saying that the TTIP was good for global order. And he has up until February of 2018 to reinstate it. And we can see right now, Trump has made no mention of any of this. Both the Paris Climate Accord, he made no mention of the TTPP or the TTIP, and right now he has a standing executive order. Now, if he goes and actually signs another executive order, canceling the other executive order, we know right there and then that we have major problems. But from my point of view right now, this is looking like a lot more propaganda, because remember, when he was coming into the office, the corporate media, they're just throwing propaganda story after propaganda story, and we need to look back in time, because they were telling us that Russians hacked the election, Trump was colluding with Russia, that Obama wasn't spying on Trump when Trump said he was being spied on, and WikiLeaks and Trump said no, Russia was not dealing with WikiLeaks, giving them the information. It was coming from a separate contractor. All that stuff turned out to be completely fake, coming from the corporate media. They're now admitting to it. So for Bloomberg to start making this stuff up, well, it tells me something is going on. And didn't Bloomberg just a little while ago report that North Korea fired projectile missiles into China? And it turned out to be completely fake, phony, and false. And they said, oh, we misinterpreted what North Korea was actually saying, and we translated it wrong. And we need to look back in time, throughout time, where the corporate media completely makes things up and they lie about everything to try to push a certain agenda. Until it happens, it is propaganda. And most of the things they say are complete propaganda. And of course, when it comes out that, according to a source of Bloomberg, according to this, we know that something is going on right here. Now, we see the deep state, the Democrats, they are pushing a bill. They introduced a bill. Congressman Earl Blumenauer introduced a bill that would empower former presidents and vice presidents of both parties, in coordination with the sitting vice president, to determine if a president is fit for office. And of course, they're citing the 25th Amendment, and they're saying that, we're going to have to change this around and make it so that the former presidents, vice presidents, they can say if the current president is fit for duty. Now, again, this goes against the Constitution right now. They can't do this, so they would have to change the 25th Amendment. But we can see that they're trying to push their agenda. They're trying still to remove Trump. Now, if he's part of the deep state and he's working for the deep state, the central banks, why are they still doing this? This makes no sense. Why is the New York Times still pushing fake news? Why is CNN still pushing fake news? It makes no sense. And I'm referring to the Patriot pictures that they had in their publications. So right now it seems that something else is going on here, where just a couple days ago they thought Trump was completely with him, and things are starting to change, because I think they're starting to realize that they're being snowed right now. And this is part of Trump's inner plan to basically get everyone onto his side, have the truth come out in a different way. And if you notice, the truth is coming out. CNN is admitting to things. The FBI, CIA is admitting to things. The Russian collusion thing pretty much is dropped, even though in the background, which they were really not reporting on anymore, they're still doing their investigation, but they're not going to find anything. We could see that things rapidly have changed. The narrative has changed. And I think they're waking up to this change and saying, okay, have we been duped right now? And we need to watch and look at the indicators to see how this proceeds. Now, Judicial Watch announced that it filed a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit against the Department of State and the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, for records and communications relating to the funding and political activities of the Open Society Foundation. Well, this Macedonian organization, part of George Soros' Open Society Foundations, received nearly $5 million from USAID from 2012 to 2016. The lawsuit was filed in the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia, and the suit was filed after both the U.S. Department of State and USAID failed to respond to the February 16, 2017 Freedom of Information Act request. Now, all records related to any grants, contracts, or disbursements of funds by the Department of State to the Open Society Foundation Macedonia and or any of the foundation's subsidiaries. This request includes all related requests for funding, payment authorizations, or similar records, as well as all related records of communication between any official employee or representative of the Department of State and any official employee or representative of the U.S. Agency for International Development, that's USAID. Now, we can see right now that they're looking into this because they're seeing that the taxpayers were paying for all this, and it was flowing into George Soros' Open Society Foundation. And they're saying that around $930 million, well, it was flowing into this. And the Obama administration seemed to bust taxpayer budgets in an effort to fund the Soros operation. This is coming from Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton. And we can see that the Obama administration and Soros, well, it looks like things are closing in around them, especially with the spying, especially with the Pfizer warrant and that lawsuit by Clark Page and this lawsuit by Judicial Watch. I mean, things are rapidly deteriorating for the Obama administration. Maybe this is why he's traveling all over the world, staying out of the United States right now. Now, we know that Facebook, they set up this algorithm to detect fake news, to make sure everyone understands what is fake, what is real. And those media outlets that are considered legitimate news outlets, well, they won't be included in the fact-checking. Now, which are the news outlets that are considered legitimate outlets? Most likely CNN, ABC, CBS, and it looks like the Chicago Tribune got caught up in the fake news filter, because what they've noticed is that the number of readers to their paper, well, electronic paper, has gone down because it's flagging a lot of their stories as fake news. Well, maybe it's actually working, because most of the time these newspapers get their stories from the Associated Press, from other big corporate news agencies, and they're complaining right now, saying that their readership is going down. And we know right now that where is Facebook really checking to see if it's fake or real? Because just a little while ago, these legitimate news organizations said that Trump was not being spied on, that WikiLeaks was getting their information from Russia, and that would have been held up as true. But today we learn the opposite. And the alternative media was saying, no, those stories are fake, phony, and false. And it turns out the alternative media was right once again. And the corporate media turned out to be fake news. So what is fake? What is real? Maybe we should just let the people decide and let them do a little bit of research to find out what is real and what is fake. Now, out in North Korea, the U.S. has sent a U.S. Sniffer plane, and it's going to make flights past North Korea. And they're going to be sniffing for radioactive debris to detect a nuclear weapons test. And what's very interesting about this is that there was a story that was out there that there were maybe 16 U.S. ships that were involved in Fukushima, where they were contaminated with radiation. One of them was the USS Ronald Reagan, and there were many other ships along with this. And we know the USS Ronald Reagan, well, it is still in Japan. It has not left the area. Actually, Pence was there in Japan on the ship, and it has not set sail for North Korea. So we know right now that Ronald Reagan is not moving. The USS Nimitz, not moving at all. Actually, the Carl Vinson just yesterday was in Singapore, but we can see right now that the corporate media is questioning what the White House, what the Pentagon was saying about these ships all heading towards North Korea, and none of them are. But of course they're saying, well, no, don't worry, it's heading there now. I think the Pentagon, the White House, those individuals fed the corporate media completely fake information to trick them. Because what we see coming out of the corporate media right now is a lot of war talk. Like North Korea warns of super mighty preemptive strike into the U.S. Now, what people don't understand is that you need to detect what is coming from the deep state and what is not coming from the deep state. And there is a way to detect what is coming from the deep state. Because every time you see, and we can go back in time to the Islamic State, where the Islamic State was calling out to the U.S., come on in and attack us, or the Islamic State was saying, we're going to attack the U.S., why would the Islamic State at that point in time provoke the United States to come in and destroy them in Syria? It made no sense. And why would they come to the United States and do something where they would be attacked then in Syria? That is propaganda, because we can see the U.S. was attacking the Islamic State for over a year and nothing really happened. Actually, they expanded their land grab in Syria. Now, they never provoked Russia to come in and attack them, and Russia did come in and attack them, and they lost ground. Actually, they're almost completely gone now. So here we have the same situation where the deep state is using the same exact method. North Korea is going to attack. North Korea is going to fire a missile into the U.S., and it's going to hit the mainland. And the stories are very similar. Why would North Korea, at this point, provoke the United States to attack? Think about it for a second. This is the deep state speak. Think about what's surrounding North Korea. We have Japan, South Korea where the United States is, Japan also the United States, China on the other side, and Russia. They are surrounded. It would make no sense to provoke the U.S. to come in and do something. This is the deep state pushing their propaganda. Now, to take this a step further, how do we know if the president is part of the deep state? Well, way back in my reports, I talked about Obama, Bush, and others, and how the deep state works. They deal in absolutes, just like the Sith in Star Wars. You do it our way, or that's it. Cross the red line, or that is it. Now, Bush, if we go back in time, he says you're either with us or you're with the enemy. It's an absolute. If you look at Obama, if you cross this red line, well, that's it. If you look at what Obama, John Kerry, and the rest said to Ukraine, that said to the Assad forces, that either you do it our way or you're going to be attacked. That is it. That's how the deep state works. If you look at Trump right now, he doesn't deal in red lines. Actually, he said the opposite. He wanted peace with North Korea. He wanted China to help out and deal with North Korea right now. There are those in his administration, like Nikki Haley, who was never Trumper, who talks in absolute. Tillerson, who talks in absolute. And many others who talk in absolutes. But we've never heard Trump actually come out and say any type of absolute. Yes, he said, ooh, Kim Jong-un is a bad man. But he's never talked in that absolute fashion, which should tell you something right now. And this is why we're looking at all these indicators. Now, we have to remember that the reason why there's a big push to get into North Korea is because of the opium fields. Because North Koreans, with all these sanctions, they needed cash. So they started up the opium trade once again. Now, this is in direct competition with the CIA in Afghanistan. And we can see that they had to use something to make everyone feel afraid of North Korea. And that is their nuclear weapons. This brings me back to the Sniffer plane that is flying over North Korea and the ships that were contaminated with radiation when they were helping out with Fukushima. Now, we know that Ronald Reagan is still in Japan. The other ships, we really don't know where they are. Now, there could be a false flag where they set up one of these ships that is contaminated with radiation. They might sink it outside of North Korea. This is a possibility. The Sniffer plane could come over. They could say, oh, one of the ships disappeared. We're detecting radiation. Maybe it was some type of missile with a nuclear tip on it. So this is something that we need to watch. This is something that we need to look at, because we can see that they're definitely pushing their agenda. Now, out in Ukraine, Poroshenko is saying that this is not a frozen conflict. This is a hot war, and it's going to grow as time goes on. And we know that Graham and McCain were out there saying that this is the year of the offensive. So we need to keep an eye on Ukraine, because we see they are definitely pushing this idea. We know that Trump said that Iran is complying with the P5+1 deal. Now, Tillerson came out and said that Iran nuclear deal does not achieve its goal of keeping Iran from attaining a nuclear weapon. He also added that the JCPOA ignored all other threats from Iran and it's still a terrorist state. So we have two different messages coming out of the administration, one from Trump and one from these other individuals. Now, out in Syria, the U.S. media outlets, they're claiming that the Syrian Air Forces, they have moved their assets to Russia-controlled air bases in southwest Latakia. And this is coming from CNN, Fox News, and other outlets. And the Syrian and the Russians are out there saying, we moved a couple of planes, and this is because they're having a major offensive in that area. But the rest of the planes we have not moved. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to build this up like something is really happening. And the only thing that's happening is they're trying to get rid of the Islamic State like they've been doing all along. But of course, the corporate media really blows everything out of proportion, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to scare and suck in the American people into a war. This is what their ultimate goal is. And we talked about how the DHS Secretary Kelly was telling us that we're in a situation equal to or worse than 9/11. And while he was speaking at George Washington University, he laid out what the Hill called a dark vision of the global threats facing America. Basically, he's trying to scare America into doing what he wants. He's saying, listen, you need to do what we want or else. It looks like the deep state, the central bank, the neocons, they're getting desperate, because they're out there telling us that they're coming for our freedom, our democracy. They hate us for our laws. They hate us for our values. No, these people hate us because we're in their countries. But what he's talking about is that they're planning to do something here in the U.S. or out in the Middle East or out in Europe or in North Korea if you don't do what we want. This, to me, is a sign of desperation. This is a sign that they're losing the battle, that they have to do something big and spectacular. And this is what we're looking at right now. And we need to look at every single indicator right now, because we can see at this point, as they become more and more desperate and they lose the battle, well, they're going to do something. They're going to do a last Hail Mary to try to get us into this war. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.